the worst show I've ever had.
I mean, we've had several together. We had a summer full of shows together that were awful. But
actually, Branson, there are several of them in Branson.
Yes.
Probably the okay. I'm probably going to have to go all the way back to my early days in comedy because, as you know, you develop a thick skin after some years in this business. And so the shows that are awful when you're seasoned and you are a pro, they're not as awful as when you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
When you take everything personally. So the earliest, one of the earliest disasters was I was doing an open mic at a Holiday Inn, and this was on the southeast side of Indianapolis, and it was a pretty rough room. It was one of those things where you go in, you get on the list, and virtually everybody could get on the list, and so there would be 25 comics, all going to go up and do 5 minutes, one after the other, and it was a full room. So there was probably 110, 120 people in there, just everywhere in this lounge area. And because it was an open mic and they were mostly amateurs, it didn't have the comedy club structure. Mm-hmm. And so anything went. In the comedy clubs where I was doing open mic, you had to be clean. They wouldn't, it wasn't a strict no 4-letter words, but you couldn't just be off the wall vulgar, or right. Else they would, because they were trying to groom you for MC work.
Right.
And so that you can't use any of that awful material as an MC. And so that it was a waste of their time, but it wasn't that way in the Holiday Inn. So the Holiday Inn, I'm close to the bottom. I'm like 18 of 20 or something like that. And each act that gets up is just a little more bass and a little more vile than the one that in front. And so it became, by the time they got 5 or 6 acts in, it was really just okay, if you thought that was outrageous and horrible, I'm going to do this. And so the comedy just went out the window. It now became, let's just say outrageous things. And so it went like that. The guy right in front of me was built like a football player, a flat top football player build, wearing rouge, lipstick, long eyelashes, and a dress. That was what went up onto the stage in this room. And they just went crazy. That was all he had to do. He went up and they were already whooping and hollering and out of their minds. And then he had a bunch of street jokes that he told that were like one-liners, just these filthy one-liners that he'd gotten from a book somewhere. And he would tell that joke. And then he had a bicycle horn somewhere under his dress. And he would go, so he would hit himself in the chest and it went, yeah. And he did that for 4 minutes. And then they introduced me. And it was so bad. I just, the crowd went from just climbing the walls to dead silence. And I did my set to silence, except for the hissing and some boos and some you suck and I remember that was when I realized that the term flop sweat was not just a figure of speech. I literally thought that it was a figure of speech, but I had it just wet, palms were sweating. And I almost quit comedy that night.
Wow.